ladies and gentlemen. We've all been there, the sting of someone pulling away, the silence that echoes louder than words. It hurts, and in that hurt, it's easy to spiral into self-doubt or anger. But I want to offer you a different perspective, one that empowers you to rise stronger and with greater clarity. Today, I'm sharing 7 steps you can take when someone distances themselves or ignores you. These aren't just strategies to cope, they're a roadmap to reclaiming your power, dignity, and inner peace. When someone distances themselves or ignores you, it's natural to question your own worth. Thoughts like, what did I do wrong, or am I not enough, can creep in and take hold. But here's the truth, your worth is not tied to how someone else treats you. It's not determined by their attention, affection, or acknowledgement. Your worth exists because you exist, period. It's easy to internalize rejection and assume it says something about who you are. But often people's behavior has more to do with their own struggles, insecurities, or life circumstances than with you. Their distance might be a reflection of something they're going through that has nothing to do with your value as a person. In these moments, you must resist the urge to let their actions dictate your narrative. You are not a collection of someone else's opinions or decisions. Think about it this way. If you had a beautiful piece of art, a painting full of color and emotion, and someone walked past it without stopping to look, would that diminish the beauty of the painting? Of course not. The painting's worth isn't diminished because someone failed to see its value. Similarly, your worth isn't lessened because someone chooses not to acknowledge it. Acknowledging your worth starts with the way you talk to yourself. When rejection happens, the inner critic often gets loud, whispering harsh judgments and feeding your insecurities. But you have the power to rewrite that script. Instead of focusing on what you might lack, focus on your strengths, your resilience, and your growth. Reflect on the times you've overcome challenges, shown up for others, or accomplished something meaningful. These are the markers of your worth, real, undeniable evidence of who you are. This doesn't mean ignoring feelings of pain or rejection. Ignoring your emotions can lead to more harm than good. Instead, acknowledge those feelings while reminding yourself that they don't define you. It's okay to feel hurt, to feel sadness or confusion. Those emotions are valid. But beneath them, hold on to the unshakable truth that you are enough. Acknowledging your worth also means surrounding yourself with people who remind you of it. Seek out relationships where you are celebrated, not tolerated. Choose to spend time with people who make you feel seen, heard, and valued. Their presence can serve as a mirror, reflecting back the beauty and strength you might sometimes forget. And remember that worth is intrinsic. It doesn't need to be earned. You don't have to prove your value to anyone, nor do you need to perform for their approval. You are valuable simply because you are here, because you bring something unique to the world that no one else can. So when someone distances themselves or ignores you, take a deep breath and remind yourself, I am enough. Let this be your mantra, your foundation, and your guiding light. Their actions don't define you. Your courage, kindness, and authenticity do. And that is more than enough. When someone distances themselves or ignores you, the instinctive reaction is often to protect yourself. You might try to hide your feelings, shut down emotionally, or convince yourself that you don't care. Vulnerability feels risky, especially in moments of rejection or uncertainty. But embracing vulnerability is not about exposing yourself recklessly. It's about being honest with yourself and your emotions, even when it's uncomfortable. Vulnerability is often misunderstood as weakness, but it's actually a profound strength. It takes courage to confront your feelings rather than bury them. It takes bravery to sit with discomfort and acknowledge the pain of feeling dismissed or overlooked. Pretending you're unaffected might seem like the easier route, but in reality, it keeps you stuck. By avoiding vulnerability, you cut yourself off from the opportunity to process, grow, and ultimately heal. When someone distances themselves, it's natural to wonder why. You might feel tempted to suppress those questions because the answers, or the lack of them, can feel too painful to face. But leaning into vulnerability means allowing yourself to ask those questions, even if they don't lead to immediate clarity. It's about being open to the discomfort of not knowing and sitting with the ambiguity rather than rushing to numb it with distractions or defensiveness. Embracing vulnerability also means naming your emotions. Instead of saying, "I'm fine," or dismissing your feelings, give yourself permission to articulate what you're experiencing. Perhaps you feel hurt, confused, rejected, or even angry. By naming these emotions, you take the first step toward understanding them. This self-awareness is not just liberating, it's essential for moving forward. Being vulnerable doesn't mean oversharing or exposing your pain to people who may not treat it with care. It's about being honest with yourself first and then choosing when and with whom to share. If the relationship matters to you, embracing vulnerability might involve initiating a conversation with the person who has distanced themselves. It's not easy to say, "I feel hurt," or "I miss our connection." But these words, spoken from a place of authenticity, can pave the way for healing or at least provide closure. Even if the other person doesn't respond as you hope, your vulnerability is not wasted. Every time you allow yourself to be real, you build a deeper connection with yourself. You affirm that your feelings matter and that your emotional honesty is worth the risk. Embracing vulnerability isn't just about navigating relationships, it's a way of living. It's about showing up for your life wholeheartedly, even when it feels scary. It's about taking down the walls you've built to protect yourself and trusting that you can handle whatever comes next. The beauty of vulnerability is that it doesn't shield you from pain, it transforms it. Through vulnerability, you find resilience. You discover that your strength lies not in avoiding your emotions, but in facing them with courage and grace. When someone distances themselves or ignores you, it's a natural response to want answers or to immediately try to fix the situation. However, before rushing into action, it's important to step back and assess the relationship with clarity and honesty. This isn't about assigning blame or finding fault. It's about understanding the dynamics of the connection and determining whether it truly aligns with your needs, values, and well-being. Start by reflecting on the history of the relationship. Ask yourself how the connection has made you feel over time, not just in the present moment. Has it brought joy, support, and mutual respect? Or has it often left you feeling uncertain, overlooked, or unappreciated? Sometimes patterns of behavior, whether intentional or not, can reveal whether the relationship is balanced and healthy. This process of reflection is not about judgment. It's about gaining insight into what the relationship has meant to you and whether it has consistently contributed to your sense of well-being. Consider the level of reciprocity in the relationship. Healthy connections are built on mutual effort and care. Have both of you invested in maintaining the relationship, or has it often felt one-sided? Relationships require work, but that effort should not rest solely on one person's shoulders. If you find yourself repeatedly being the one who initiates communication, resolves conflicts, or provides support, it may be a sign that the relationship lacks balance. Also, take a moment to examine the boundaries within the relationship. Do you feel respected and valued? Or have there been instances where your boundaries were crossed or your feelings were disregarded? A strong relationship honors each person's autonomy and emotional needs. If the other person's actions or lack of action consistently make you feel small or unimportant, it's worth questioning whether the relationship is serving you in a meaningful way. It's equally important to evaluate your own role in the relationship. Have you communicated your feelings and needs openly, or have you avoided difficult conversations? Have you contributed to the relationship in a way that reflects your values? Self-awareness is key to understanding how the dynamics of the relationship have unfolded and whether you've shown up authentically. Assessing the relationship also means being honest about its current state. If the person has distanced themselves, is it because of a temporary life challenge they're navigating, or does it reflect a deeper shift in their priorities or feelings? Sometimes people pull away because they're overwhelmed, but other times it's a sign that the connection is no longer as meaningful to them. Being willing to acknowledge this possibility, even if it's painful, allows you to approach the situation with clarity and self-respect. Assessing the relationship is about determining whether it aligns with the person you are today and the life you want to build. Relationships should nurture you, not drain you. By taking the time to reflect, you give yourself the gift of understanding and the freedom to make choices that honor your emotional health and integrity. When someone distances themselves or ignores you, the silence can feel heavy and disorienting. In such moments, it might feel easier to avoid confrontation, suppress your feelings, or simply hope things will resolve on their own. But relationships thrive on honest communication, even when it's difficult. Communicating courageously is about stepping into that discomfort with openness and respect, creating a space where understanding and healing can happen. To communicate courageously, you first need to acknowledge the fear that often comes with speaking your truth. Maybe you're afraid of being misunderstood, rejected, or facing an outcome you don't want. These fears are natural, but they don't have to control you. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's choosing to move forward despite it. Recognizing this is the first step toward having an honest conversation. Begin by approaching the situation with empathy. Instead of assuming the worst about the other person's intentions, consider that their distance or silence might stem from something they're experiencing internally. They may be struggling with stress, uncertainty, or emotions they haven't shared. By framing your communication with curiosity rather than judgment, you set a tone of respect and care, which can help open the door to meaningful dialogue. When you do initiate the conversation, clarity and kindness are essential. Use I statements to express your feelings without placing blame. For example, instead of saying, "You've been ignoring me," try saying, "I've noticed some distance between us and I feel hurt and confused about it." This approach focuses on your experience rather than accusing or pressuring the other person, making it easier for them to respond without feeling defensive. It's equally important to listen actively. Communicating courageously isn't just about expressing your thoughts. It's also about creating space for the other person to share theirs. Listen not to respond, but to understand. Be open to hearing their perspective, even if it's not what you hoped for. True courage in communication comes from being willing to face the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. Timing and context also matter. Choose a time and place where both of you can speak openly without distractions or interruptions. Rushing into a conversation when emotions are running high can lead to misunderstandings or conflict. Waiting until you both feel ready increases the likelihood of a productive and respectful dialogue. It's important to remember that courageous communication doesn't guarantee a specific outcome. The other person might not respond the way you hope, and that's okay. The purpose of speaking your truth is not to control their reaction, but to honor your own integrity and commitment to authenticity. By communicating courageously, you create an opportunity for clarity and connection. Even if the relationship changes or ends, you can move forward knowing you acted with honesty and respect. This kind of communication strengthens not only your relationships, but also your relationship with yourself, showing that you have the bravery to face challenges with an open heart and a steady voice. When someone distances themselves or ignores you, it can trigger a range of emotions, confusion, frustration, or even a sense of rejection. In these moments, it's essential to prioritize your emotional well-being by setting healthy boundaries. Boundaries are not about punishing someone or cutting them off. They are about protecting your mental and emotional space while fostering relationships that are rooted in mutual respect and understanding. Setting healthy boundaries begins with self-awareness. Take the time to understand what you need to feel safe, respected, and valued. Ask yourself what behaviors or dynamics in the relationship are affecting your sense of well-being. For example, does their inconsistent communication leave you feeling anxious? Do you find yourself overextending emotionally while they offer little in return? Understanding these patterns will help you identify where boundaries are needed. Once you've clarified your needs, the next step is to communicate your boundaries with honesty and kindness. This might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you fear conflict or rejection. However, expressing your boundaries isn't about controlling the other person. It's about being clear about what you will and won't accept in the relationship. For instance, you could say, I value our relationship, but I need more consistency in communication to feel connected. Or, I understand you're going through something, but I need to protect my emotional energy if you're not ready to engage. It's important to frame your boundaries in a way that focuses on your needs rather than criticizing the other person. This approach not only reduces the likelihood of defensiveness, but also reinforces that your boundaries are about self-care, not blame. Keep in mind that how the other person responds is out of your control. They may respect your boundaries, or they may choose not to. Either way, setting them is a way of honoring yourself. Healthy boundaries also require follow-through. If someone continues to disregard your boundaries, it's essential to take action to uphold them. This might mean stepping back from the relationship, limiting your interactions, or reevaluating the connection entirely. It can be difficult to enforce boundaries, especially if you care deeply about the person, but allowing repeated violations only undermines your self-respect and emotional health. Remember, setting boundaries doesn't mean closing yourself off or giving up on relationships. It's about creating space for connections that are reciprocal and fulfilling. Boundaries can actually strengthen relationships by fostering clarity and mutual respect. They help both parties understand what is needed to maintain a healthy dynamic. Setting healthy boundaries is an act of self-love. It's a reminder that your needs are just as important as anyone else's. While boundaries might feel challenging to establish, they are an essential part of building a life and relationships that truly support and honor who you are. Rejection, whether subtle or overt, can feel deeply personal. It stirs feelings of inadequacy, self-doubt, and sometimes even shame. However, the truth is that rejection is often less about you and more about the other person's experiences, choices, or circumstances. By learning to reframe rejection, you can transform it from a source of pain into an opportunity for growth, understanding, and self-discovery. The first step in reframing rejection is to remind yourself that it is a universal experience. Everyone at some point has faced rejection in relationships, friendships, jobs, or other areas of life. It is not a reflection of your worth, but rather a reflection of mismatched timing, priorities, or expectations. A person pulling away or ignoring you doesn't mean you're unworthy. It means the connection, for whatever reason, isn't aligning at that moment. Recognizing this can help take the sting out of the situation and prevent you from internalizing their actions as a judgment of your character. Reframing also involves shifting your perspective on what rejection represents. Instead of seeing it as a door closing, view it as redirection. When someone distances themselves, it may create space for new opportunities, relationships, or personal growth that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. For example, if a friend or partner pulls away, it might be a chance to focus on nurturing other meaningful relationships or pursuing passions that align more deeply with your values. It's also helpful to reframe rejection as a mirror rather than a verdict. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this experience? Sometimes rejection reveals areas where you can grow. Perhaps it highlights patterns in your behavior, communication, or emotional needs that can be explored and understood more deeply. However, this reflection should come from a place of self-compassion, not self-criticism. The goal isn't to find fault in yourself, but to use the experience as a tool for self-awareness and empowerment. Rejection can also serve as a reminder of your resilience. Each time you face rejection and choose to move forward, you're proving to yourself that you are capable of weathering life's challenges. The pain of rejection, while real, doesn't have to define you. It can instead become a stepping stone toward greater strength and confidence. You've survived rejection before, and you'll survive it again. This is evidence of your ability to endure and thrive. Reframing rejection requires you to rewrite the story you tell yourself. Instead of thinking they didn't choose me because I'm not enough, reframe it as they made a choice that reflects where they are in life, not my value. Instead of thinking I failed, reframe it as this experience is teaching me something valuable. Even if it's not clear right now, by consciously choosing narratives that uplift rather than diminish you, you regain control over how rejection affects your self-image. Rejection is not an ending, it's a pivot. It's an invitation to focus on yourself, embrace new possibilities, and trust that the connections and opportunities meant for you will align in their own time. Reframing rejection allows you to move forward with grace, knowing that your worth is inherent, unshaken, and not determined by anyone else's decisions. When someone distances themselves or ignores you, it can leave you feeling unmoored, as if the ground beneath you has shifted. It's easy to feel powerless or question your own value, but within you lies a well of strength that may have been overshadowed by the weight of the situation. Reconnecting with your strength is about rediscovering the resilience, courage, and self-worth that have always been part of you, even when they feel out of reach. Start by reminding yourself of your inherent capacity to overcome challenges. Think about the times in your life when you faced adversity and found a way through it. Perhaps it was a difficult decision, a significant loss, or a period of self-doubt. Yet here you are, standing, breathing, and continuing forward. Those moments are evidence of the strength you carry. Rejection or distance may feel like a setback, but it doesn't erase your history of resilience or your ability to grow through hardship. One way to reconnect with your strength is to focus on what makes you feel most empowered. This might mean revisiting passions or hobbies that remind you of your talents and creativity. Whether it's painting, writing, exercising, or solving problems at work, these activities can help ground you in a sense of capability. Strength isn't always about facing rejection head on. Sometimes it's about finding joy and confidence in other areas of your life, proving to yourself that you are whole and complete regardless of someone else's actions. Reconnecting with your strength also means taking care of your emotional and physical well-being. Self-care isn't just about indulgence, it's about nurturing the parts of you that feel depleted. Take time to rest, nourish your body, and engage in practices that bring you peace, such as meditation, journaling, or spending time in nature. These acts of self-care remind you that your well-being matters and that you have the power to prioritize yourself even in difficult times. Another powerful way to reconnect with your strength is to surround yourself with supportive people. Reach out to friends, family, or mentors who remind you of your worth and encourage you to see the bigger picture. Healthy relationships can act as mirrors, reflecting your inner strength and helping you rebuild any sense of self that might feel diminished. Their love and affirmation remind you that you are not defined by the actions of one person. Remember that strength isn't about being invulnerable or unaffected. It's about choosing to move forward, even when it's hard. It's about allowing yourself to feel the pain of the situation while also trusting that it won't define your future. Strength is found in the small, consistent steps you take to rebuild and reclaim your sense of self. It's in every choice you make to show up for yourself, even when it feels like the world is pulling away. Reconnecting with your strength means embracing your resilience, honoring your capacity to heal, and trusting that you have everything you need within you to rise again. It's a reminder that while the actions of others may shake you temporarily, they can never diminish the core of who you are.